record on this computer. Awesome. There we go. Oops. On the weekends. I'm gonna share my screen. Yes. Okay, cool. So last class we started talking about theme, and the very most simple and small definition of a theme, it's that a theme is the central idea, so the main idea, the main topic or point of a story or an essay or a narrative, and in this case of a play. Now, there are multiple themes playing throughout this play. We overlooked the theme of prejudice, racial prejudice, which we kind of touched just a bit when Iago and Rodrigo called Othello, well, they obviously all call him the Moor, thick lips, all these racial things. He's obviously mistrusted, and there's always some sort of mythical oral around him where no one really sees him as he is. They kind of just use him because he's a military commander. They do see his value, etc. But he's not equal. He's never equal to everybody. So there's that theme of prejudice, right? But I didn't want to touch much in it, kind of stay so much on it because that's just one. And there's other ones that I feel like kind of get our attention or need our attention much more. So one of those is honor and reputation. Now, honor is, especially with men, is this respectability, this integrity, having so having respect towards themselves, how they view themselves, and being just, being fair to everybody else. Their masculinity has to do with their honor. And then reputation is how other people view them. So what people say about them, and of course men in this society are always caring that their reputation is intact, that no one violates, no one offends their reputation according to the rules of the society. So Shakespeare does a great job at highlighting these things from the male perspective. And so we actually have more male characters in this play than we have women. So that's something interesting to note. And we said last class that this theme plays out, and you guys gave examples in how each character kind of defend their own honor and their own reputation. And we started with Brabantio, who is Desdemona's father. He wanted Desdemona to marry well, and I put quote unquote well, which means want to marry a noble, very wealthy young man, right? To his liking, of course. He didn't like Rodrigo. Rodrigo was out the window, right? And he does feel like his reputation has been tarnished by Desdemona and Othello's marriage. So again, he's taking care that no one sees him, or no one views him as a father who was easily deceived, or a father who was easily disobeyed without any consequences, which is why he goes to the law. He goes to the Duke and says, I need this man killed for what he did, right? And we already know what happens after the story. And Desdemona definitely violates his honor that he is due as a father according to the rules of society. And of course he wants to kill, or he's willing to kill Othello in revenge. Iago, though he's not an honorable man, he just has the reputation of being an honorable man. He also feels like his male honor or his respectability has been violated when he's overlooked by Othello, who chooses Cassio over himself to become the lieutenant. So he feels like nobody has really taken him into account, etc. Good morning, Noelani. We're just reviewing a bit of what we did last class, okay, hun? And then of course, somebody came up with an amazing idea that his honor might feel like his honor has been tarnished by Othello, who's his boss. So Othello's in this position of command, and of course Iago is under him, And so, who knew that this quote unquote black man could be the boss or could be my boss? And so he feels like that shouldn't be the case, right? So he feels like this is not working out. And then finally, there's a rumor around that Othello might have slept with his wife. Of course, this is just a rumor, but it serves as fuel for Iago's anger and sort of the fact that he's seeking revenge for these things. So this theme or this central idea will still play out throughout the play. So when you guys are reading, be on the look, and we're only going to focus in three themes: honor and reputation, appearance versus reality, and then another one, woman versus men, which is something that I feel like happens throughout the play. Today, for our discussion, we're just talking about two. We see a little bit about woman versus men in Act 2, Scene 1, just slightly when Iago talks about his wife in a demeaning way, etc. But for now, we're just gonna focus on these two. So that's what we have so far. I have no quotes, but I am referring to what happened, so details of the play, which should be easy to grab quotes from. So again, for the sake of our first essay, you need to collect quotes on who these men are, Iago and Othello, because you're going to do an essay based on their characters. You're going to analyze their characters, who they are, personality, character traits, how do they care about their honor or not, etc. So now we come to the second theme that I wanted to discuss, and it is empty, because I want to hear from you guys. So let me take this smaller. And before we begin, let's talk about what this means. So what is the definition of appearance? And then I'll go to people, volunteers. What do you guys say appearance means? Anybody can jump into.
It's like the way you present yourself as like a person.
The way a person presents themselves. What else? Somebody else. Go ahead, Mariah.
I'd say, I don't know who that was, but they were like right on. That's what I was going to say. It's however you look to the outside world, whether that be in your personality or how you present your beliefs or how much money you act like you have. Like if you dress really rich, you'd say in appearance you look wealthy, even if you're not.
Right. Image, right? So this is the outside image. This is sort of how you present yourself to the world. This is your image. Let me highlight that idea. Okay. Anything else to add on to that definition? So the way a person presents themselves, the outside image, the appearance of something. Okay, I'm happy with that definition. And then, of course, what is reality? That one's easier.
What something truly is. Like, even if something doesn't look like it could be this, then it might be true, you know?
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, all right, somebody else to add on to that. I don't know why I can't see you guys. If you're raising your hand, I can't see you, so just talk. Like I can't see the little squares. Okay, doesn't work. I don't know what I did. All right, let me go to Riley Osuna. What is reality to your own perspective or your own definition? Add on to what Noelani said. And then just
Well, I think the same as Noelani, just like the truth or like real life.
Okay. So the truth in real life. Okay. So we have been dealing with, especially through the characters, right? Because it's a play, the only way we know who's saying what is through their dialogues. But we have been dealing with this theme throughout, and this central idea that there's a difference. That's why it says versus, which is kind of like one on one side, the other on the other side, almost as if they were in conflict against each other, right? There's this theme of appearance, which is the outside image, versus the truth, right? Almost like lie versus truth. Now, appearance isn't always a lie. Sometimes appearance is the truth. That's what a person is. I think Othello is that very perfect example of he is who he says he is, and the image that he presents. There might be some underlying things that you'll see in the future. You know, he does become pretty jealous and whatnot, but that's for the future. As of now, I think he has a lot of integrity, and integrity has to do with being who you are and presenting yourself as that. You have no cover. In the beginning of this play, or before we started the play, I asked you guys a question. Why do people wear masks? And all of you guys came to a consensus that in some way they want to hide who they truly are, maybe because they don't want to be judged, maybe because they feel like they don't fit in, or maybe because they want to have attributes that they don't really have, but they want to make it seem like they do. So when we are dealing with the play, we've gone through Act 1 and now a little bit of Act 2. So how is this theme upheld during Act 1? So Scene 1, Scene 2, Scene 3 of Act 1. Let me stop my share. Maybe that'll work. Sorry. I don't know why. I think I minimized it and now I can't see you guys. Okay. I'm putting back the participants. Okay, so now I can see. Can't really see my participants. Well, I know you guys by name. So let me go to pick one. Wesley. So how have you seen this idea or this theme of appearance versus reality played out through Act 1 of the play? And go ahead and unmute yourself. There it is. Where's Wes? New chat. Okay, so go ahead and write it down in the chat, Wesley, and then I'll come back to read it. So since your mic doesn't work, go ahead and write it down. So how has the theme of appearance versus reality played out in Act 1? Okay, let me go to Tank.
Yes.
So the question is, we're talking about appearance versus reality, sort of like an image versus the truth. How has that idea played out in Act 1? So in Act 1, that's when we learn about Iago and etc.
I can't really think of one.
Well, remember, it's the image versus the truth. Who has a good image but is not a truthful person? Still no clue?
Yep.
Okay. Is it because you haven't read or because what? Just no idea?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking about it.
Okay. All right. Let me go to Lillian. So what do you think, Lillian?
Isn't it Iago, because like he looks good, but like inside he's not the best person that people know.
Yes. Can you give me an example of how he represents himself in front of people? Like, how does he represent himself in front of Rodrigo?
Kind of like he represents himself as responsible, kind of, but he's like not that responsible.
He's responsible. He's a friend, right?
Yeah.
Responsible person, friendly.
He's basically a piece of trash.
He is a piece of trash. Well, but again, his appearance is he's a responsible man. He's friendly. He is honorable. That he is truthful, with the best intentions, right? But that's just his image. So this is his image. That's what he presents himself as. With Othello, how is he with Othello? Does he ever tell Othello, or, you know, kind of question Othello's like, why did you choose Cassio? I was a better man, or I was a better lieutenant. That Cassio doesn't know anything.
No, not really.
No. How does he present himself?
Because he's trying to wait for the right moment to turn his back on him, honestly.
Very good. Very good.
When you think about it.
Yes. So he presents himself as almost like a passive man. Passive man, peaceful, you know, he doesn't hold any grudges or anything, no hate. He's very peaceful. That's just his image. But in reality, and we've analyzed him extensively, how is he in reality? Let me go to Donna. Who is Iago in reality?
In reality, I would say he's somebody who lies a lot to himself and to others.
Liar.
He's not trustworthy. I think he's kind of rude and just not a good person all around.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me go to see over here. Coming down. Miss Piper Woodward, what would you add on to the reality of Iago? Who is he as a person in terms of reality? Now his image.
He's very backstabbing and two-faced, and there's two personalities to him, basically.
Okay.
He is always, as he portrays, his actual personality is like the opposite of what he wants to show everyone what he is.
Okay. Completely the opposite of who he really is. Okay. Is there anyone else? Go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like Iago, he lies because he wants to hear what he wants to hear. So then he lies, like, does that make sense?
Yeah. So Iago lies
like he wants to believe it.
To deceive himself. Sure. I think that's true. Okay, so almost like he wishes this was the reality, right? He wishes that he was chosen. He wishes that the Moor or Othello was in his command, and that he was not under his command. So anything else? That's part of his reality. So you can see again and again, and I won't put quotes, but the quote that keeps resonating to me is, I am not what I am. And he knows it. That I feel like that's the most appalling thing, that he knows who he is. He knows he's after his own interests, but he sees this as an attribute, like almost like I'm smarter and I'm better than everybody else because look at you fools, like, you know, you're easily manipulated by me, and I'm just this smart guy who's going to take advantage of all of you. You know, does that make sense on like what he is? That goes into a little bit of what Julia is saying. He lives in this distorted reality of.
Like,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like it would be almost be worse if he didn't realize that it was like what he was doing was wrong, you know, like completely thinking that what he was doing was justified, you know, because
Oh, I see what you're saying.
in that, like, that's just the fact that he can't even look at himself and say, like, you know, like, what I'm doing is wrong, you know, like in this case he at least can understand that he's doing it to his own benefit instead of being like, you know, you have no reason to go against me, you know, like I'm doing everything completely fine, you know. So I feel like it'd be worse if he didn't understand that what
He
he was
didn't
doing.
see his own his own mistakes, but see, that's the thing, he doesn't see them as mistakes, he sees them as an attribute. He's smart, he's cunning, he's manipulative. He feels like everybody else is so blind to who he really is, and
Yeah,
he
he's
doesn't.
definitely manipulative.
So that's something, and I don't like his character, but a lot of people feel interested towards who he is. And one more thing that I wanted to add, especially and we'll see it when he's talking about his wife, he goes into this rant of, you know, women are like this and women are like, well, he's not lying that much. Women do talk a lot. They do gossip. They do say a lot of stuff. So can we say that he's a blunt man? Like he just speaks his mind, even though his mind is
Yeah.
yeah, in some ways at least. So I'll just put like a question mark. Okay, go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, okay. So I was mainly just gonna say, like, I get what Noelani is saying, but also at the same time, I'd almost argue that it's worse if he totally knew what he was doing but still continued to do it anyway.
Well, he
Like,
is. He's aware.
yeah,
He's
yeah, no,
definitely
like
self-cognitive.
yeah, no, I'd argue if it's worse because at least if you're like if you were completely aware that what you were doing is wrong and you still continue to do it anyway, like there's like you like I'm trying to explain this in a way that makes sense. Morality is a very sticky issue generally all across the board. But if you continue to do these harmful things to other people, still knowing that it's wrong, you could almost argue that what you're doing is worse because you are knowingly committing wrong and continue to do so even
Yeah, there's
after
a
the
certain
fact.
degree of aggravation because he's aware of what he's doing. You know, a person who doesn't know that they're causing harm, almost we, you know, as a society, and you know, we're in the 21st century, right? But we as a society deem it, okay, well, you didn't know, you were ignorant, that's fine. You know, it's almost like it's not okay, but we give you a chance, we give you a break. But this man is so despicable, not just for what he does, but because he knowingly does them, and he knows what the outcome will be. You know, I don't think it's a lie. I don't think it's a lie that he's a very smart man. He's manipulative. He knows how to plan and plot so he can get an outcome. So in that sense, he sees it as an attribute of his personality.
Yeah, no, he's calculating and manipulative.
What was that?
He's calculating and manipulative, and I guess to dumb it down to the absolute like simplest level would be like what I'm trying to say is your friend accidentally being mean to somebody but not realizing it, or your friend being intentionally mean to somebody because they think they can get something out of it.
Yes, and again, there's aggravating factor that you guys are pointing out. He knowingly, so he knows about his deeds and still continues to do them. So
It's a bit of a git, honestly.
what do you mean?
He knows what he's doing, but he justifies it.
Yeah,
so,
he self-justifies for sure. Yes. Self-justify. So thank you all for your contributions. We don't really see this theme appear in anybody else. But again, this theme of appearance versus reality, we see it with him. And we do see how Othello at some point will guide himself by appearance of things versus the reality. Especially when his wife is accused of something that she didn't do. And instead of looking at reality objectively, he goes by what he sees, by what the eye sees. So, with that in mind, we move into motifs. So, we have, I don't think I've ever talked to you about motifs. We've done them before, but we haven't really defined them as such. But in thinking that my sophomores will go into AP language, I think. Yeah, it's not literature. AP language next year. I saw it fit to bring those things up before you leave. So what are these? Here's a definition that I found from that amazing website that if you've never seen, it's such a cool, I actually linked here. It's literarydevices.net. And it defines anything that you have to do with literature. It just defines it, gives you amazing examples. So that's what I got it from. In literary piece, so any written literature, a motif is a recurrent image, idea, or symbol that develops or explains the theme. So once again, we're looking at two themes. One, or so far at least, honor and reputation, and appearance versus reality. Those are our themes, okay? But a motif is just that image or that smaller idea that creates the theme. So even though they sound the same, they're not the same. Think of it as a theme is this major, central, big umbrella idea, and a motif is those little parts of the puzzle that make it up. So those little images, maybe a key symbol, or an idea, smaller idea that develops or explains the theme. So along with the presenting this prevailing theme, a lot of authors include several motifs in their literary works as reinforcements. There you go. And then they help readers to comprehend the underlying message that writers intend to communicate to them. So last year, my sophomores, when they were freshmen, we looked at the the Scarlet Ibis, I think, which was this. Do you guys remember that story? I think it scarred some of you guys.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. Do you guys remember that? It was about that.
How could I forget it? What?
Yes, it was.
Spoiler alert, he kills his brother.
Yes. Well,
It was a good story.
It's more like abandonment and getting whacked in the head by a tree branch, but like.
Yeah, it was. So that one had a lot of symbols. We, like a foreshadowing symbols. That Scarlet Ibis, and the fact that it appeared dead when the kids were playing, and just a lot of symbols out there. So all of those reinforced the main idea about the loss of innocence and guilt, and there's so many things that we saw in that little story. But so far in Othello, we've seen two. Number one, the blindness to reality. And I think Iago is the most perfect example of this motif, this image, this idea. But I want to throw something out there for you guys to kind of argue. Do you guys think that Othello is blind to reality? Like, he doesn't see the wrong, he doesn't see what's going on behind the curtains. Do you guys think he has a little bit of that? He's blind to reality. And so far of what we've read.
I mean, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it
How?
depends. Like,
just because he speaks so highly of everything.
Tries to see the good in everybody.
He's kind
Yeah.
of like he thinks everything is positive, but when it's not, like he doesn't realize it. Honestly.
Thinks
He
everything.
probably,
Huh?
he probably also is kind of separated from reality because he thinks Othello was probably trying to hurt him instead of him thinking Cassio was the actual right position,
Oh, yeah.
a good person for the job.
Thank you. Yes. So maybe because he thinks everything is positive, he's separated from reality. He's unable to discern, and discern is like looking beyond appearance. It's like, how would you say? Do you guys understand what I mean by discernment? Like, when you know a person is shady, I'll just put it out there like that. You know a person is like, that person is like, there's something about them that doesn't quite convince you. Like you feel like they're not to be trusted, and you know they're the most outgoing. Sometimes they present themselves as really nice and super friendly, but there's something about them that you can't, like, I don't know, you just can't trust.
And
Has
then later
anyone
on,
had
they
that
turn their back
experience?
on you.
Yeah.
Huh? Go ahead.
And then later on, they turn their back on you. I
Yeah,
felt
that there you go. But you knew, like, it seems like you knew. Maybe everybody else was just so like manipulated and so easily deceived, but you knew that person was shady. There was something in there. Go ahead.
I think it also comes from the fact that, like, going back to people wear masks, I just don't think that it's possible for anybody to, like, when they present themselves so, like, out of the ordinary, like, so out of the box to be, like, this great person in everybody's eyes. Like, I don't think anybody's naturally just like that. I think, like, they have a reason to, like, make other people see them a certain way rather than what they want them to see them as, because they have something to hide, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like people who are the most outgoing, well, not, I mean, people have just outgoing personalities, but, like, you know, like, over the top, I feel like they will be the people who, you know, they have something that will hurt you eventually.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so maybe because they're almost trying too hard to represent themselves in some way, that's almost a cue for anybody to say, there's something underneath that happy and jolly face, or you know, not that we're always thinking wrong of people, but it's almost like a cue, as you're saying, like, you know, everything seems to be perfect with their lives and nothing's going on, nothing's wrong. Well, you almost feel like that's not normal. There's something underneath.
Like, I was gonna say, I definitely have friends who are just, like, super great personalities, you know, they're just over the top naturally, but, like, you sometimes get that feeling, like, with specific people, you know, I don't know, it's just,
it's just some feeling, and I don't always get it. I feel like I'm like Othello. I see the good in people all the time, but a lot of people that are around me see it, and they're like, you really didn't notice? Like, this person is hiding, or you know, they're hiding some sort of truth. So I feel like Othello is somewhat blind to the reality in that way, and he's unable to discern evil. And of course, Iago is a really good plotting person. You know, he takes care of every step he takes, and every step he does or takes, it seems like there's something behind it. So we can definitely see that. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I was also gonna say, I think the amount of, like, how much you're on edge with people is because of your past. Like, if you've been hurt in the past, then like, you're less able to be open with new people that you meet, or you're, you know, you're just not as, like, open to accepting people as you were before because something's hurt you, or just something, like, you feel betrayed in the past, so you don't want that to happen again, you know? So I feel like that has to do with how you perceive people, like, as yourself, not the other person.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, so a lot of the time past experiences do scar us or other people, and so you're unable to fully trust people again. I'm sorry, I've neglected the chat. Look at the chat. Yes, thank you, Wes, for doing that. So he brings the, yes, he does bring the humor. I think he makes it very interesting, of course, and that's probably why a lot of people would argue that he is the protagonist, because without him, it almost seems like we wouldn't have a story. But as we read on, we'll see what real role is the one that he plays. So I like all those. So those are the motifs. We'll come back to this slide because there's definitely some more. But for now, we're going to move on into our debrief for Act 2 and Scene 1. And we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to do my best to go over it. So let me go to, where am I at? Google Classroom and classwork. Othello. There we are. Okay. So Scene 2, and Act 2 is also 3 scenes long. So this weekend, you guys are going to be in charge of reading Scene 2, which is not long at all. So you're going to be in charge of reading Scene 2 and Scene 3. Hopefully you haven't. If you have read ahead, that's totally fine with me. Okay, so we start here where we already know that Othello went to war. He was commanded to leave, and so he left. He left Iago in charge of Desdemona, and Iago takes advantage of the opportunity to begin plotting what he feels is his master plan. So we're going to go a little bit of that over that. But first, we learn, and I'll add notes as we go. First, we learn that something happened to the Turks, to the fleet. Let me see. Let me go to Jillian. I haven't heard your voice. What happened to the fleet? To the vessels that were in war against Cyprus?
I honestly don't really remember.
No? It's okay. Anybody remembers?
Yeah, and I had a question too.
Go ahead.
Well, the Turkish fleets, they got destroyed in the storm, but I had a question about Iago's character. If he's so intelligent and so manipulative, but I feel like he underestimates women's intelligence. Like, I understand how women were perceived back in the day.
Yes, he did.
But I feel like for a man who's supposedly intelligent and, you know, trying to play the game, he almost has like a resentment towards them. And I don't totally understand why he's so resentful towards women. Or
in fact, in
so lowly. Or yeah.
Yeah, in Act 2, Scene 1, we see it kind of flourish. And it won't be until towards the end of the play where we'll see why he's really he's not just rude, he's almost like sexist. Like, he feels that this is the inferior, the weaker gender that should not be trusted, that they should not be taken into account, that they're not smart at all. And so some of it is cultural, but some of it is personal. But we'll see that throughout this scene. And of course, kind of like where it all ends up, we'll see it towards the end. So,
okay.
Great question. Thank you. So yes, the enemy Turkish fleets, they drown in a storm. And so if they are done with, then the most obvious thing is that Othello is going to come back, right? So that's kind of where we start off in Act 2, Scene 1. They're gone away from a flood. That's what it says. And then we come in, we have the conversation. Let me go down. Second gentleman, Cassio. There it is. So this is kind of the scene. Desdemona, there's Emilia, Iago, Rodrigo, and then soon Othello will join. But for now, we have Emilia. Emilia is Iago's wife. So he's actually married. And that's a very relevant detail in this case. And then Rodrigo, who is, of course, in love with Desdemona, and then Cassio, who is the chosen lieutenant, right? We already know that. Okay, so she's asking for her lord, who's Othello, right? She's asking where is he at? How come he's not here yet, etc. He says he hasn't arrived, but he should be here soon. Go down here. Okay, so this is where Iago starts kind of like talking about woman, right? He says, "Sir, would she give you so much of her lips as of her tongue she oft bestows on me? You'll have enough. Desdemona, alas, she has no speech." So Cassio was being pretty gentle to Emilia, right? He like kissed his her hand, and you know, he was just being he was a gentleman, more or less. But Iago was, you know, he immediately reacts and he's like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, you can kiss her and she'll give you more than that if possible." So
Oh my God.
I know that, but that's exactly what he says in here. And Iago, Desdemona says, "Well, let her speak. You know, she needs to talk for herself." So they kind of start this conversation. And Iago says, "In faith, too much. I find it still when I have list to sleep. Mary, before your ladyship, I grant. She puts her tongue a little in her heart and chides with thinking." So he's like, yeah, she talks too much. Let her talk. Doesn't think that much, though. So he has some sort of resentment. That's what we can take off here. So Iago has, or speaks harshly towards his wife, who is Emilia. And there seems to be an underlying reason. There seems to be some marital problems of trust. So it seems like Iago doesn't trust her that much. And this is lines 890 to like 900. So let me do is Act 2, Scene 1, 890 to 900. So that's kind of where we learn these things. And I won't copy or paste. Wow, I just erased it. There it is. Okay, I won't copy or paste any quotes, but I'm giving you the line numbers of where you can find that if you're gonna do an analysis on this guy. Okay, so let's figure it out. Let's see. Okay, so it's almost funny. But he says, come on, your pictures out of doors, bells in your parlors, wildcats in your kitchens, saints, since Roma, your injuries, devils being offended, players in your housewifery, and housewives in your beds. So what is this is a huge quote on when he's referring to women, right? So he says,
he thinks they're kind of like,
go ahead.
He thinks they're kind of like cheaters, you know?
Yes.
Sluts, kind of.
Yes. There you go. Thank you. He says, you are pictures out of doors, bells in your parlors, wildcats in your kitchens, saints on your injuries, devils being offended, players in your housewifery, and housewives in your beds. So he's really making sure that both Iago wants both Desdemona and Emilia to hear his opinion about women, which is he compares them to wild cats. So like offended easily. What else does he say? Pictures out of doors, bells in your parlors, wildcats in your kitchens, saints, your injuries, devils being offended, players in your housewifery. So lusting after other men, and easily deceived. Okay, and this is line 2.1.895. Okay, all right, let me unbold that part. Okay, so there we find, and then Desdemona obviously gets extremely angry, and not just because of what he's saying, but because she is wife to his boss, so he shouldn't be speaking this way, right? He says, no, it's true, or else I'm a Turk. Like, no, like, I swear this is true. Otherwise, I would be like the enemy, basically. You rise to play and go to bed to work. Emilia, you shall not write my praise. No, let me not. And so Desdemona says, so what would you say of me? You know, what would you say, who would you say I am? That's what he means by praise. And he says, please don't let me talk, because I'm always going to be critical. And Desdemona is kind of like, come on, like, say it. Aren't you the one who started to talk? He's like, okay, I'll talk. And he says, and she says, I am not married, but I do beguile the thing I am by seeming otherwise. Come, how was thou praise me? So she's saying, look, I'm not that gentle as I look. I know I can deceive people, but she's not really saying like I'm a hypocrite. She's more like, I'm not as gentle as I look. I can take it. So he goes on to says, I'm about it, but indeed my invention comes from my pate, as bird lime does from freeze. It plucks out brains and all, but my muse labors, and thus she delivered. If she be fair and wise, fairness and wit, the one's for use, the other uses it. So he's saying, comes from my pate, and so he's saying, I know that I'm speaking from the truth, and I know that you're like a muse working, and that you've delivered that way. And if you are beautiful and pretty, there's no such a thing as a woman who is beautiful and smart at the same time. So that's what he's saying, like, you're either pretty or you're smart. So let's see. Iago believes woman cannot be both beautiful and smart at the same time. So he's saying you can be ugly and smart, and it won't help you much, but you're smart, so that works. Or you can be beautiful, but then you're kind of stupid. So, and then of course, he's insulting their intelligence. He's saying, you're not that very smart, so demeaning their intelligence. If she be black and there to have a wit, she'll find a white that shall her blackness fit. So he's saying, even if the woman was black, so he's definitely being racial, having prejudice or racist, whatever. He is racist, we know that. He said, even if she was black, but she was smart, she would find somebody to fit her blackness, so like somebody who can love her, right? So he feels like women are these cunning creatures who, no matter who they are, they'll always find something to complete their desires. So he's kind of, I don't know, he's a little bit of a misogynist. That's something that we would say. Not fair. Let's see, how if fair and foolish. Oh, and then they're talking about, what if she's pretty and stupid? And then he says, she never yet was foolish, that was fair, for even her folly helped her to an heir. So she's saying, even if she's pretty but stupid, even her stupidity will make her find somebody. So that's, again, another insult to woman. Okay, we're gonna stop right here. Didn't finish. In fact, we have a lot left, but I'm gonna go as fast as I can next class, or faster. So what you're gonna do is you're going to go to your class plans. Okay. So this is Let me add that because I need to remember that. Debrief Act 2, Scene 1, and then we continue. Just writing that for myself. Okay, so your homework today is to read Act 2, Scene 2 and 3. Okay, so read, and then also plus collect quotes to help your analysis of the characters. And this is, I'm talking about Othello or Iago. So when you're finishing reading the Act 2, I want you to collect quotes with a certain focus. The ones that speak of their characters, who they truly are, who do they perceive themselves as, etc. Either Othello or Iago. So again, by now you should be thinking about who you're going to analyze. Do you want to analyze Iago's personality, or do you want to analyze Othello? Because that's going to be your essay. So as you are finishing reading and adding into your quotes, and for the sake of this, I just want 3 quotes in total. You should have added 3 quotes for scene 1 because it was long enough. And Iago's speech really kind of tells of one more thing that he is. He's misogynist, which is a person who offends women and sees them as less. So that's like another aspect of himself. You can add those quotes in there. For your homework, then, I want you to read the rest of Act 2, which is Scene 2 is super small. It's like one little paragraph. Scene 3 is a little longer. And then collect quotes to help your analysis of the characters, whether that's Othello or Iago, to your interest. And I only need 3. Okay, that's your homework. Now I saw that a lot of you guys, let me put that in, that a lot of you guys have been, didn't turn it in, which is fine because I can still see it. But I did see a problem with Google Classroom that once you've turned something in, trying to turn it in again is impossible because now it says that it's not yours anymore because you've turned it in, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return them all so that you can actually keep on, like adding on to them. And once we are past next week, I'm going to check each quote. So far you should have 9 for Act 1 and 6 for Act 2. So 9 plus 6, that's 15. Okay, that's how much you should have up to now. That's going to be part of your homework as well. But instead of turning it in now, I think it's not wise to do that because then it creates all kinds of problems. Then once we are done with the essay, that's when you're going to turn it in so I can see kind of all of them. Okay, so I won't mark you down. See, I can see a lot of you guys have been doing it. Some of you haven't. I don't know why you have nothing attached, but if you have not, attach something so I know you're actually keeping track of your quotes. If you're doing it on paper, like this person did it on paper, I think Wiley did it on paper, that's okay too, because even though I may not be able to read it, I know that you're doing what it takes for you to complete an essay with good quotes. So that's what I wanted to let you guys know. So that's your homework. You don't need to turn in your homework, but know that on Thursday, when the class finishes, I want your quotes because that's when I'm going to check. Okay, so it's up to you and your responsibility. Okay, all right, so I'm going to end class now because we are out of time. I hope there are no questions. I'm sorry I couldn't really see you, but my camera isn't working. So you can leave now. Thank you so much for coming in. I will post the recording today around 2 p.m. So yeah, have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Ms. Rosas.
Bye, honey. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. I won't see you till Tuesday. Bye.
Stop.